happens when we don't reverence? When we don't reverence who God's identity is, those 13 attributes, what do we start doing?
Walking away or started distancing ourselves.
Distancing for ourselves from who He is. Oh, that's powerful. I've never thought of that. Yeah. What happens when we distance ourselves from who God is? You know, we have a skewed view of Him. We have a misunderstanding of His nature and His character, right? Another thing that happens is that we take advantage of God's name, identity. He's compassionate. He's gracious. I'm going to do whatever He wants. God wants because He's compassionate and gracious. He's going to forgive me, right? It's this taking God's identity and who He is and using it very cheaply, right? It's a very cheap. What does Philip Yancey say? Cheap grace? Was it Philip Yancey? I don't know. Maybe it was someone else, right? And then it says, keep the Sabbath. Right? Keep the Sabbath. Remember the Sabbath. What does your text say? It says, remember to observe the Sabbath by keeping it holy. You have 6 days each day for your ordinary work, but the 7th day is a Sabbath day of rest dedicated to the Lord your God. On that day, no one in your household may do any work. This includes you, your sons, daughters, male servants, female servants, livestock, foreigners. Really, really interesting. Really interesting. This is Sabbath. Very different from what we think of Sabbath, right? We have a very puritanical understanding of Sabbath as what? Close all your shops, right? Nobody work, nobody sell anything. And that's Old Testament biblical, that's right. But Puritanism has become what? More about what we're against. Do you know why millennial generations are leaving the church now? One of the main reasons why the church is diminishing is because they've recognized that the church is more about what we're against than what we're for. We're against homosexuality. We're against divorce. Right? We're against promiscuity. I'm not saying that these things are not wrong, right? But we're just against everything. And then you ask the church, what are you for then? I can tell you what I'm against though, right? I'm against homosexuality. Yeah, I am. But I really love my gay friends. I do. I have gay friends. I hope you guys won't stone me. I have gay friends. Beautiful people. Actually, they're better people than I am. I'm against homosexuality, but I am for you. I would love for you to know the love of God. Even before you change and walk away from homosexuality, I would love for you to know the love of God. Right? Yeah. There are leaders at Fuller, they're high executives, divorced. You know, church has always, for many years, the last 50 years, has kicked out families and women and men for getting a divorce. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe you're divorced, right? Complete rejection. Okay, I don't agree divorce is right, but how do I love you? Right? How am I for you? Right? And the Sabbath is a day of being for something. It's not just being against something. Right? We don't want to be people just who are against things. That's not God. God is not just randomly against things, right? He's against things for a specific reason of being for something. Right? He says what? He says, on the Sabbath, I want you to stop working, be against work. Why? For the purpose of rest. Get some rest. For goodness sakes, you guys. America has a disease. The disease is called work. The Indians call it wetiko, right? It's a mental illness, they call it. Yeah. We're just obsessed with work. You know? Work. Korea, obsessed with work. You know, even after you finish work, you got to go to work. You got to go to a bar and hang out with your coworkers, right? It's work after work. And God says, that's not how I created you. Rest. Get some rest. Please, get some rest, right? You do your work hard, and on the 7th day, what do? You put it all down. And it's a form of trust. It'll get done. One way or another, even if it's not me, it'll get done, right? Rest. And interestingly enough, when you read the Sabbath law, God always couples it with, ooh, I just went over time, I didn't even realize. God always I'll finish this thought and then we'll continue on with don't murder. That just sounded funny, but anyway. He always ties the Sabbath commandment with the creational order. He says, in 6 days God created the earth, and on the seventh day he rested. What is the creational order? Why does God always couple Sabbath with the creational order? He's saying, what did God do on the seventh day? He rested and then he looked at everything that he had created and said, it was very good. That's part of what the Sabbath is to reflect back on the 6 days of work and to recognize God and say, wow, God, thank you. That was pretty good. Even if though it wasn't that good. Even if all you did was to watch 5 movies. Right? It's to be able to reflect God theologically on the 6 days and to reflect on the beauty. Right? Not just on what you've done, but on what God's done. Just in nature, right? Now, I'm not saying stop going to church and go to the neighborhood park, right? That's not what I'm saying. You can do this in the church. And the third thing, right, is that he says, 6 days you work, 7 days seventh day you rest. It's what I said the first day. It's 6 days of prose. It's just the regular stuff. It's just the regular stuff that you do. You know, regular work duty, regular reading, regular writing, writing your blogs, talking to your parents on the phone, talking to your family, taking care of your children. Just the regular things. It's prose. And then on the seventh day, it's poetry. You sing a song. You do something beautiful in expression, right? And interestingly enough, it says you give Sabbath to everybody. Slave, free. Even your animals get a Sabbath. What is the vision and the dream of the Sabbath? You know what money does? Money divides. It's people who have money and people who don't have money. There's an incredible division, right? Of you wear nice clothes and I don't, right? On the Sabbath in LA, what you do, because there's a large Jewish population, right? You'll see the Jewish people, what do? They'll wear black and they'll walk. Part of it, the reason is because they believe driving is work. But they'll walk. And I read this book by this guy named Eric Jacobson. He calls it The Sidewalks of the Kingdom. He says the sidewalk has an incredible way of being able to equalize people. Because beggars walk the road, rich people walk the road, and once you're on the sidewalk, we find an equality. And what is God saying on the Sabbath? Find an equality, slave, free, even the animals. You find community and equality, and you say, and that's why the Sabbath is not just about me resting. The Sabbath is about being able to look at my neighbor, reflect on my neighbor, think about my neighbor, think about the equality of my neighbor, right? See, this is God's kingdom. This is God's kingdom here on earth, even before we get there, right? Wherever there is. So I've taken us 5 minutes over. Did we take a break? Okay. How many minutes?
What is it now?
25?
15 minutes?
15 minutes.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Oh!
Did you just change the clock? Was it a little slow? Was it before? Oh, you just moved it. Oh, you like hung it up rather than just sticking it in the curtain thing. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, let's jump back into it. Mark, were you saying you had something? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, awesome. Let's go.
All right, let's get back. Before we go on, I wanted to talk about two things. If you guys are interested in the Sabbath, Jane came up and asked if I could make a good recommendation on a Sabbath. The Sabbath is going to be one of the most foundational functions of the Old Testament. I mean, Israel gets kicked off the land because they don't keep Sabbath. They don't give Sabbath to the land. And so God says, get off. Because now the land needs to have Sabbath, right? So if you want to read a little bit more, I would recommend this book by Walter Brueggemann. It's called Sabbath as Resistance. Isn't that a great title? Sabbath as Resistance. Like we got to resist the unsabbath world mode of the world, right? Another great question that, is it Yozua? Is that the proper pronunciation? Or Joshua? Yozua. So Yozua came up and asked about this thing about the image of God. And it was such a good question that I felt like it should be addressed to everyone. Oh, that candy chew, the ginger mark, makes my throat feel so good. Prophetically, he came up and gave me a ginger candy. And those are actually the same things that I eat to calm my... Seriously, it was like, this is the manna from heaven. Okay. So Yozua was asking, the image of God, is it just one thing? Is it just the one image of God? What I'm going to propose to you, that the image of God is actually quite multifaceted. So, when they say in Revelation, the elders fell down and gave worship, and then the elders fell down, and then just repeatedly they fall down and give worship. I love what David Hamilton has to say. He said, it's because God is so multifaceted that you just have to keep worshiping, because every time you look at God is a different, oh my God, right? So what is the unity of God? When we talk about cultural unity, ethnic unity, what does it all mean? Do we just all whitewash everybody and now you're just all one color? See, if that's what unity of God is, then I actually don't want that. Because who wants to be one color? The unity of God is actually what? It says every tribe, tongue, nation will come. And what will every tribe, tongue, nation bring? They'll bring their customs, they'll bring their language, they'll bring their worldview, even it's going to be corrected, right? And it's all the different colors and the ethnicities and the customs coming together to what? Form one body. Your body is not one giant eye. That'd be gross, right? You couldn't see, you couldn't speak, you couldn't walk. Your body is multifaceted, Paul says, right, in Corinthians. For a reason, so that all those things work together to create one large, beautiful body, right? And that's what it is. It's you bringing your white Americanness. It's you bringing your African American, Black Americanness. It's you bringing your brown Mexicanness, right? It's you bringing your yellow Chinese, Korean, Japanese-ness, right? And when you bring all those things together and you meld it, and you do it in the love of God and it's unified, it creates the body and the kingdom of God and the image of God, right? So don't think that image of God is just one color. It's not white or black or brown or green or yellow or purple, right? It's the rainbow, right? That's the rainbow. And the rainbow is more than 7 colors, actually. It's a gradation of colors. It's just our eyes can't see it. But anyway, I digress. The next commandment on the list is honor your father and mother. Now, to some of us, we don't like this commandment because we come from abusive fathers and mothers, right? How can you honor father and mother when they are not worthy of honor and, right? Totally valid. That is completely valid. Okay? I give you complete, leeway to feel that way. You have every right to feel that way. But the word honor is something that we do need to kind of study. And I'm not going to try to give you the totality of the word. But the word in Hebrew is very much similar to the word worthy. Remember I was talking to you about worthy? It has to do with what? Weight, heaviness. And that's what honor means. It means to give worth, it means to give heaviness. It means a certain level of taking serious, right? Now, taking your father and mother seriously is it's a case-by-case thing. I can't give you a blanket statement and say this is how everyone ought to be taking their parents seriously, because it means taking an abusive parent seriously. What does that mean, taking an abusive parent seriously, right? This is something you have to work out in your heart. This is such a sensitive topic that I don't want to go, I could talk for hours and hours on this topic, right? And trying to condense it into a 2-minute thing, and gloss over it. But this is what God says. What does it say about God? That God wants you to honor, worthy, take seriously, even those who are not worthy of being taken seriously, right? Take them seriously, honor them, give them weight. Take what they say, take what they do seriously, It's really God's heart, and this is the only commandment with the blessing, right? So that you may live long on the land, right? It's a painful commandment, So, especially to people who have come from very broken homes and abusive fathers and mothers, right? That's me too, right? I come from an abusive family. Yes, sir.
Like you said, take them seriously. Like even when they treat me wrong, or they treat me wrong and they've hurt me, because it could be easy just to kind of brush it off and forget them. Hard in my heart towards just become numb.
Wow.
So even taking the wounds seriously.
Wow, that's honoring to yourself and honoring to God, absolutely. There's a moment when my dad was destroying furniture downstairs, and my mom had gotten a concussion. I remember coming upstairs to my room and closing my door, and just sitting in my chair, and it's exactly what I did. I said to myself, don't feel this. Don't think this, because if you do, you will go crazy. I remember completely shutting down. And I think that has a good part to do with what it means to honor. Yeah, to take that seriously, So that's something like I said, this is a very, very, very deep and sensitive topic. That's why I think it's the law that bridges the love of God with the love of man. It's that middle law. It really does bridge it. It's it's a pivotal law. See, this is what I mean. See, questions are coming because it's such a sensitive topic. Yes, Adlit.
But I think it's also about honor them for giving you.
Absolutely,
life.
absolutely,
So,
absolutely. Yes,
we can do that.
Yes.
Even though they
Yes.
have not been.
absolutely, absolutely. And that is the main. Main argument of all theologians. Is that God is asking you to honor simply because they brought you into life and because they procreated you in the image of God creating you. That is to be honored. Yeah. Now to some of you that doesn't sit well. Right? Who cares if they brought me into life, if they abandoned me and gave me up for adoption when I was 6 months old, right? So I understand. So all of this has to be, like I said, this is very sensitive. Very, very sensitive topic. I don't take it lightly. Yeah, but like I said, we could talk about this in a group setting. You want to do it in a small group setting and talk about what it means to honor your parents. You guys can go on for hours and hours and hours. But I do think it's one of those very, very, like I said, the only commandment with a blessing. Yeah, only commandment with a blessing. Next one is do not murder. And so now we get into these laws that specifically say what? Do not, do not, do not, right? Do not murder. In your group, ask one another, why is this law important? Why does God not want us to murder? Think about all the things that we've talked about, the image of God, right? The value of life, blood, right? Oh, man, I gotta show you guys that video. I'll find it tomorrow. First thing I'll do, I'll show you the blood video. Cute blood. Jigga blood. gonna pray. So turn to your groups really quickly, give you like a minute. Why not murder? If you've done something wrong to me, why shouldn't I just be able to go out and murder you? Murder. All right, so let's bring it back. All right. Man, you guys have a lot to say about murder. All right, you guys, let's bring it back. All right, let's bring it together. So why not murder? I am so interested to hear it because you guys, wow, you guys were like, wow. Yes.
I'm not going to answer
Randy,
that question, but
Uh-huh.
I thought, what an interesting command to impose to 40 years earlier.
Bam! Oh yeah. Why it's so interesting that this is a command, this is the sixth command to humanity, given to a man who 40 years earlier had himself committed murder. You know? Yeah. Ouch. Oh, Moses. That's great. That's great. So what do you guys think? You guys are talking so much. Yes.
Just think if we're made in the image of God, then we're killing the image of God individually.
Ouch. Yeah. That hurts. That hurts. That's right. Yes.
Also, like, as beings equal to each other, we don't have the right to
That's right.
take that power.
That's right. That's right. I'm going somewhere with this, I promise. Yes.
Because it's like the opposite of be fruitful and multiply in Genesis. It's the opposite.
Be fruitful of, wow. Dang. Good. Wow. Way to spit in God's face. Yeah. No, I'm serious. Way to spit in God's face. Yeah. To do the exact opposite of what God's asking. Ouch. That's right. Man, you guys are so insightful. Any other thoughts? Do not murder? Yes.
If you don't murder someone that you have agreements against, then it allows God to work forgiveness
Wow.
through relationship.
That's right.
restoration,
That's right.
and Possibility of
That's
that
right.
person maybe learning from that mistake and glorifying God.
Yeah.
If you cut them down, there is no
Yeah.
possibility.
That's right. Wow. Wow. That's right. If you murder someone, there's zero possibility of reconciliation. Although, no, I'm joking. No, I won't go there. Do not murder, right? And so then we always have to take it to what Jesus says. If you hate your brother in your heart, you have murdered him already. You know? Wow. See, this is very powerful. Right? We have cut down the image of God. We have gone against the cultural mandate, be fruitful and multiply. We have cut down any possibility of reconciliation, and we have reflected the image of me and not the image of God when we murder, you know? And Jesus takes it to the extreme and says, the murder of your heart, God sees that and it's important. Yeah, it's equated to the murder of your hands, you know? It is and this is what God says I love. Every law he gives, he's teaching us what he loves, right? Right? This is what you have to think about as you're going through the laws. What does God love? Right? He says, do not commit adultery. He says, don't break covenant. You and your spouse have made covenant to one another. Do your best not to break covenant. That covenant is so important to God, right? And this is a painful message for people who have gone through divorce, right? You feel like a failure. I failed. I've broken my covenant, right? And I have many things to say about divorce. Won't go into it, but it's painful. Painful for all parties involved. Yeah, painful. My best friend's, it comes from a family of divorce. Almost destroyed her. Painful. Divorce. Yeah. Divorce is very painful, and I don't think it's God's judgment saying, it's not just about divorce, it's actually about adultery, right? Willful breaking of the covenant. Yeah. God never ever breaks willfully his covenant with us, And God is just so good. Man, I just love law. Don't you guys love law? I love law. I wish if I had the money, I would have bought you all the plush Torah doll. I carried it in a box with me and given you all of it one. I was actually going to bring mine. Yeah, but it didn't fit in my suitcase. Yeah. Just go on Amazon and look it up. It's like $20. Oh, how I love my law, right? It says, do not steal. Do not steal. The only thing, because I have many more pages of notes to go, so I won't go too much into stealing. But it's really about keep proper boundaries, honestly. Keep proper boundaries. What's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, right? Right? Of course there's ours, right? But I'm gonna go a little bit further. When you study Ephesians, right? It says everybody carry their load and everyone help to carry one another's burdens. See, that's good boundaries. Carrying your own load. That's being mature. Do your own stuff. Right? Take care of your own laundry. Take care of your own personal space in your room that you share with 5 other people. Right? Wake up on time. That's your load. Don't expect someone else to wake you up, right? 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 Carry your own load. Do your own stuff. And then be careful not to always try to carry someone else's load. See, then you're just trying to be a savior. That's called codependence. That's their stuff. You gotta let them do it. You feel good, right? You want to feel good about yourself, so you want to carry someone else's load for them. That's their load. That's good boundaries. You got to learn that in friendship. You got to learn that in marriage. You got to learn that in family, especially with children. You want to carry their load for them, right? That's why we have a lot of entitled children. Parents have carried their load, right? Entitlement. But it says in Ephesians that you carry one another's burdens. Things that are heavy. Too heavy. When I lost my mom, it was a burden. I went to moments of, why am I still alive? I wish I were dead so that I could be with my mom. Right? That's a burden. So that's when you have to call on community, and they carry the heavy burden with you. Right? This is a nice balance that we need to learn. Do not steal. Right? Don't take stuff, right? And I love, every time I read this verse, for whatever reason, I always think of the verse that you guys Andrew and Austin talked about yesterday. Psalm 133. Behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell together in unity. Right? Behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers and sisters dwell together in unity, right? So don't steal. Don't steal stuff. And the 9th is, don't bear false witness. Speak truth to one another is what I want to say. This is not going to be what I always say, but what I would like to say to you guys is speak truth. Truth isn't just about, you are so beautiful and you are made in the image of God. Sometimes truth is a sword, right? Ephesians, take the sword of truth, right? Truth is a sword. And sometimes truth has to cut. Sometimes you gotta say some not nice things. Now, I'm not giving you license to go out and say, I'm just speaking truth to you, brother, right? Because if truth is not coupled with love and genuine honor, it becomes a weapon. You kill people with truth. And many have killed people with truth. I'm just gonna tell you how it is. Whack. And you kill your brother for the sake of truth. And that's what Job's friends actually do. Right? They will kill Job for the sake of truth. No truth, no love, right? No honor. And they'll just go out and whack people with truth, right? But don't bear false witness, right? Say encouragement. But when you genuinely feel, prayerfully feel, after you've prayerfully and lovingly prayed through this, feel that you feel your brother or sister needs to hear a word of truth, you know? Because you wouldn't be a right friend, you wouldn't be a good friend if you only spoke good things. You know? If I only spoke to you good things and told you that you were all gravy, without ever letting you know, I am not an honest friend. I am not a true friend, right? So if you ever hear me say something that a little, you know, let me know if it hurts a little too much, because I'm not God. I'm more than willing to repent. That's what I actually did last night. I said to my friend, you know, if I've ever said anything that was too hurtful, I am so sorry. And he said, no, it's exactly what I needed to hear in the moment, right? And the last one is, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. I really would love for you guys to meditate on this, right? The last one is coveting. And many theologians actually believe that the coveting, the reason it's last is because it is the mother of all sins. It is the mother of breaking all of these, right? Coveting. It's jealousy, it's envy, it's selfish desire, it's comparison, it's self-centeredness, it's self-serving, it's defensive, insecure. I can go on and on and on, right? Coveting. And it's the reason why you bear false witness, reason why you steal. Coveting is the reason why you commit adultery, why you murder, right? They say coveting is the foundational root, right? It's I'm always wanting what I don't have, right? Right? Looking over at my neighbors, and God says, don't covet, don't covet. And I think that's what Paul says. I have learned the art of contentment. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right? Poor, rich, strong, weak. I am content, right? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And people have used that verse to say, I can do all things. Like I could go out and become president of the United States, right? Okay. I don't know that that's the context. I think Paul's using it in a very, very different way. And so when we finish and we look at these 10 laws, 10 words, I just think to myself, oh, how I love your law. Yeah, it is my meditation all the day, David says. And I genuinely believed he actually meditated. Meditation is just thinking about one thing and let your imagination go into. A lot of the theologians, they often talk about something called the ethical imagination, right? Or the theological imagination, is to be able to put an imagination to the Sabbath day, right? Because if you can't think imaginatively, things become very rigid and you become a bit legalistic, right? It's just formulas, A, B, C, repeat, A, B, C, repeat, right? But God says, God doesn't say, have an imagination, but theologians teach, have an imagination. What does the Sabbath look like, right? Think about it. Meditate on it. How would that look like in your life, in your children's life? Meditate. That's what David did. And that's why how I genuinely believe he became a man after God's own heart. Because he thought about it, right? So we just studied the Sabbath. We just studied the 10 words, the Decalogue, right? What you'll see here is... let's go back. Actually... Yeah, so we'll just go here. You'll see this here, and then you'll see this again a lot better in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy is actually written in a Hittite covenant structure. So it's not even Hebrew or Egyptian. It's actually, it possibly actually was Egyption. Sorry, I'm always correcting myself. It's a Hittite covenant structure. It's a foreign Hittite. And this is how they make covenants. And one of the things that would happen is that they would state the general law, which is the 10 Commandments right here. And then they would start to give specific laws. So you'll see that again in Deuteronomy. You'll see the general law, and then you'll see chapter after chapter of specific laws. And I actually really, really enjoy these specific laws. So I'm going to go through some of these specific laws with you, okay? So I'm trying to prep you as we go through these laws so that once you get to Numbers and Deuteronomy, you could have, I'm sure your teachers then will prepare you because you have some awesome teachers coming, but I just wanted to partake in what they're doing and kind of help you to prep you to be able to look at laws. Because laws can become quite boring, especially when you read laws like, do not boil a kid in its mother's milk. Nice. you know? So it's like, trust me, I won't, Moses, right? I don't even have a kid. Won't be boiling anything in anything, right? So the way to begin to look at laws are, okay, number one, the laws are actually flexible. And you're like, oh, then they're not a law. Actually, they are. Okay, let me explain. There's one law that says, I think it's I should have checked this before I came. I think it's in Leviticus, where it says, you shall only bring a sacrifice and you will only kill an animal at the, what? At the altar of God. So nobody could kill an animal at their own tent. Everybody had to bring the animal to the altar of God and offer it as a fellowship offering, right? And then in Deuteronomy, what does it say? The law actually changes and says, everyone can kill their animal at their own home. Just be sure to come down to the temple once a year. Now, what changed? In Leviticus, they're a tribal group, right? And in Deuteronomy, they are about to become a nation, right? And they are spread out. Some are going to live as far up as Dan, right? And Jerusalem is actually towards the south. So the law actually modifies. Okay? So I'm not saying, so there is a level of imagination with these laws. Okay? So they're not as rigid as you think. So let's go to one of the laws. Let's go to chapter 20, verse 22. Chapter 20, verse 22. Okay. So this is one of the specific laws. Actually, I like this law. It's page 102, verse 22. The Lord said to Moses, now what is no, it's okay. Say this to the people of Israel. You saw for yourselves that I spoke to you from heaven. Remember, you must not make any idols of silver or gold to rival me. Interesting. Build for me an altar made of earth. And offer your sacrifices to me, your burnt offerings and peace offerings, your sheep and goats and your cattle. Build my altar wherever I cause my name to be remembered. See, my name to be remembered, right? And I will come to you and bless you. If you use stones to build my altar, use only natural uncut stones. Do not shape the stones with a tool, for that would make the altar unfit for holy use. And do not approach my altar by going up steps. If you do, someone might look up under your clothing and see your nakedness. Now, how many of us, when we first read this, I remember reading this when I was like 13 thinking, oh my God, this is so boring, right? I need a sleeping pill. I would open my Bible, right? Puts me to sleep, right? I actually enjoy these laws very much now. So let's talk about this. I think this one we've already covered, so we don't have to stay too much in depth. But some of the things that I want you guys to kind of consider, right? Number one, how to read the laws. These are my two kind of guidelines. They are not very good ones. If I ever come back, I'll work on making some better ones. But number one, what does the law say about God? What does the law say about what God values? What does it say about who God is, what He loves, what He hates, right? What does the law say about Him, right? And then, what action does God want humans to take so that we can reflect that, right? It's always about what we know, what we love, and then what we do. It's about our minds, our spirits, and our bodies. Did you guys watch Equalizer? Denzel Washington? It's pretty violent. Yeah. I was like, wow, that's a lot of violence. But he says body, spirit, mind. Right? He always says to this girl who's a prostitute, body, spirit, mind. You gotta get your body, spirit, and mind right. Body, spirit, mind, right? That's very Jewish. Jewish are very embodied people. So this is how we're gonna look at some of this law. So let's consider this law. We've already kind of talked about it. It says, you shall make the altar of earth, right? You shall make it of something that God has already created. He says, if you make it of stones, don't what? Don't chisel it, don't cut it, right? Do not form this altar into what you think it should look like. Just make it into the form that I've already given you, the stones. They've already been cut, right? They're my creation. Don't form an image of what you think worship to me should look like, right? it says, do not make gods of silver to be with me, nor shall you make, sorry, it's my version, nor shall you make for yourself gods of gold, right? It's the same thought. Don't form the gold and the silver into a specific image, right? It's very easy to do that with gold and silver. And it says, do not go up to the altar on steps, because this is actually how most ancient Near East temples have been built. They would be raised on a platform, and in order to get to the top of it to offer your sacrifice, you would have to go up steps. Now, why would God have a problem with seeing nakedness? Or why would God have a problem with other people seeing nakedness? The reason is, many people believe, is because the male genitalia was actually viewed as phallic symbols. They were objects of worship. It showed strength and might and power. And so when you study the book of Ephesians, they would actually hang phallic symbols on the walls. Like male, female genitalia would be just like in a bakery. You'd have just a statue of the genital organ right on the wall. So it's always been that way. That's why there are temple cult prostitutes. So God says, do not worship me like you worship the other gods, right? And that's why the Levite priests actually always have to wear what? Undergarments. Yeah, my phone's going nuts. So what does the law say about God? God, do not form what you think I look like in your life, right? How do you reflect that? You build these altars. Do you see how embodied it is? So they have to build these altars to embody the fact that God is unknowable, right? So these physical enactments are really important. That's why they say the millennial generation is leaving evangelical church to go back to high church. Anglican church, Episcopal church, they wear vestments, Catholic church. There's an increase in the movement towards high church because what millennials want is an embodied faith. They want something that they can actually physically feel, touch, taste. Right? You go to an evangelical service and the only time you'll actually taste anything is, bad coffee. Yes, amen to that. Yeah. Unless you go to a hipster church and they roast their own beef. Yeah. So the millennials actually, you guys are millennials, I don't know if you know this about yourself, are actually looking for something authentic and embodied. Yeah, is what you guys are. Chapter 21 is a law about slaves. Did I have a... there's I totally skipped it. What the heck? There's a slave law. I love this, this little relief. There are slaves on the ground, and there's the Egyptian taskmaster, and this guy has a whip, and this guy is keeping record. And that guy must be the head honcho, I'm not sure. And they're the slave. So the slave laws. Let's read chapter 20, verse... it's actually 21. My bad. Chapter 21, verse 1 through 6. Sorry, disregard that. Wrong verse up there. Wow, where's 21? 22. 21, verse 1 through 6. Where are you? There you are. Whew. Okay, it's kind of long, so stay with me, okay? These are the regulations you must present to Israel. If you buy a Hebrew slave, he may serve you for no more than 6 years. Set him free in the 7th year, and he will owe you nothing for his freedom. If he was single when he became your slave, he shall leave single. But if he was married before he became a slave, then his wife must be freed with him. Interesting. Different translation. Oh, no, it's the same. It's the same. If his master gave him a wife while he was a slave and they had sons or daughters, then only the man will be free in the 7th year, but his wife and children will still belong to his master. But the slave may declare, I love my master, my wife, and my children. I don't want to go free. If he does this, his master must present him before God. Then his master must take him to the door or the doorpost and publicly pierce his ear with an awl. After that, the slave will serve his master for life. Okay. Now, the ethics of slavery, right? Like you're like, oh, why didn't God just get rid of slavery? Right? Remember, it's part of their culture. It's the way they're raised. When you read Philemon, when you guys read Philemon, right? Does Paul ever say to Philemon, abolish the slave system? Right? This is not what Paul says. But what does Paul teach? He teaches Philemon, Onesimus is now your brother in Christ. Right? How are you going to treat your brother? Is basically, right, is what Paul says. And it says that after a certain amount of church history, slavery in the Christian church actually disappeared.
Wow.
And I really do believe it started with Paul. Wow. Because Paul is teaching them, listen, he's a slave. I'm not going to ask you to get rid of slavery, but I will ask you to look at him as your brother. And that just completely revolutionized the slave system, right? So God doesn't say, get rid of the slaves. He says, when you buy a Hebrew slave, right? He says, he will work for you for how many years? Only 6. There is a limitation to slavery. And he says at the end of 6 years, he has to go free without cost. This is revolutionary, my friends. This is completely contrary to the Egyptian slave model. Okay?